Hey y'all, I'm Julia Lee, and I'm going to be talking about the show on Hulu that I'm currently obsessed with. First, I want to give a brief introduction to the channel. Welcome. I'm going to be talking about disability, chronic illness, TV, maybe some college. I'm not entirely sure yet, so I'd love any suggestions. Right now, I'm talking about my latest and greatest Hulu find, and that is Everything's Gonna Be Okay. Everything is Gonna Be Okay is currently on its second season, and it was created by Australian comedian Josh Thomas, who also stars in the show. I'm struggling to describe the show, so here's a little description I found online. Everything is Gonna Be Okay is a comedy drama series on Freeform. After their father's untimely death, Nicholas and his two half-sisters, Matilda and Genevieve, are left to cope with the devastating loss. Nicholas must rise to the occasion and hold it all together, while navigating a relationship with his boyfriend Alex. Now, this description makes the plot seem pretty bare bones, and honestly, it is. The storyline isn't particularly complex or unique. I realize I'm not really selling you on the show very well with that description, so let me explain. Everything's Gonna Be Okay has a simple premise, but where it really shines is in its earnestness. It succeeds by depicting the most realistic yet entertaining relationships I've seen on TV in years. In this video, I'm going to be talking about my 3 favorite things about the show, which are its depiction of teenagers, COVID, and disability. There are hundreds of shows about teenagers. Teenagers who are vampires, teenagers who kill vampires, teenagers who are wolves, teenagers who are witches, or worst of all, teenagers who do this.
I dropped out in the 4th grade to run drugs to support my nana.
That means you haven't known the triumphs and defeats, the epic highs and lows of high school football.
And while these shows are fun, something about the fact that these characters are supposed to be 16 makes my head spin. These shows very rarely capture what this period of life actually feels like, and they tend to clump all teenagers together into one age bracket, all of which look like they're over 30. They either over-sexualize them or infantilize them, but most of all, they over-sensationalize. It seems like every female protagonist is a hashtag girl boss, who always has the perfect comeback, the perfectly tailored wardrobe, and the perfect group of friends. Don't get me wrong, these shows can be really fun, but Everything's Gonna Be Okay just stands apart. It doesn't need stories about drug rings and murder with teenagers to make it edgy and interesting. It just is. First, let's look at Genevieve. Literally, look at her. She looks like she's 15 here, because she actually is. Not only that, but Maeve Press is fantastic. Genevieve struggles with the weighty loss of her parents, but she also deals with more teenage issues, like friend drama, crushes, or every teenager's secret dream, wanting to be a YouTuber. Didn't I say the show was going to be unique? These are the exact issues that every single teen sitcom deals with. Except this is different. Each issue is dealt with complexly and realistically. In the pilot, there's a scene where Genevieve is putting on the dress she bought for her father's funeral. When she bought it, she thought it would look fancy, but now getting ready to leave, she realizes she looks ridiculous. She shares a similar moment in season 2 when she wears a leather jacket and says she looks like meat. This is so relatable for me because I remember at that age constantly buying clothes for this persona of a person that I wanted to be, while simultaneously being too afraid to be that person. Like this. What was I thinking? In season 2, we also get to see Genevieve go on her first date. She spends the whole time balancing between enjoying the attention and also realizing how cringy the moment is while it's going on. I can't think of a better descriptor of what it's like to date for the first time. The other teenager on the show is Matilda. Matilda is 18 years old and autistic. Though they're both teenagers, the stark difference between 15 and 18 is shown really well. Matilda also deals with grief and growing up, but she takes a different approach, one that's about control. She plans out college, her career, her relationships, even going as far as to plan out her first time drinking because she wants to be ready for college. However, Matilda slowly figures out that adulthood isn't that simple and it's not really something that you can plan, with college becoming more of an issue and with a global pandemic hitting. This is a story I know all too well, and I really liked getting to see it on screen. Speaking of everyone's favorite topic. Another interesting thing about this show is that when the pandemic hit, Instead of just ignoring it, they actually incorporated it into the plot. This may seem like it would be really tacky and get really old, but honestly, it's not. Just like our lives were wrecked by COVID, so were all the characters at the start of season 2. Matilda is taking a gap year in her bedroom, Alex is unable to start working as a dentist, and everyone is trapped together under one roof. I gotta admit, I am really tired about hearing about this pandemic. Now don't get me wrong, I'm tired of living it, but I'm also just really tired of all the stale jokes about the new normal. However, this show managed to incorporate COVID into the plot without making the plot about COVID. Since the characters already felt so real in season 1, watching the pandemic affect their life just felt normal. Yes, there's social distancing and masks at times, but it felt like a subtle nod instead of an over-enthusiastic attempt at relatability. Honestly, the isolation makes the story at times even more interesting as characters are forced to confront parts of themselves that they haven't before. If you're bored at the idea of constant bedroom shots, don't worry. The filming locations begin to vary as restrictions are loosened. Lastly, I want to talk about my favorite part about the show, what makes it so personally resonant with me, which is its depiction of disability. I want to preface this review by pointing out that the opinions and preferences of the disabled community cannot be narrowed down to just one person's review. And that's all this is. I'm just one disabled person who likes this show a lot. Here's why. The disabled community is sorely underrepresented in media, and when they are, the depictions are often less than positive. Stories either villainize disabled people, make fun of them, make them out to be superheroes, use them in a way that's intended to make another character look sympathetic, or worst of all, use them as a prop. There are often two extremes when it comes to disabled representation, and you can see them with this little chart thingy I drew. On one side, disability is never acknowledged. It just shows up in either behaviors or physicality. The side often tries to avoid misrepresenting disabled people by just not acknowledging it. That's what we want, right, though? To just be seen as normal people? Except this method does very little to actually talk about what it means to be a disabled person. And disabled is not a dirty word. It's okay to talk about it. In fact, it's really helpful. However, there are some less than positive ways to talk about disability. This brings me to the other extreme, using disability to make a point. When disability is talked about, there is almost always an agenda. The point is either that bullying is wrong, or about being independent, or even about how our disabilities actually make us better, stronger people. It is so rare to get to see disability portrayed in a way that's not manipulated to either make a point or make another character seem sympathetic. That or it's just about being convenient to the plot. But we have found the rare and beautiful exception to this, which is, you guessed it, everything's gonna be okay. The show features multiple autistic actors playing autistic characters. The main two being Kayla Cromer as Matilda and Lillian Carrier as Drea. Matilda is an autistic character whose disability isn't manipulated or avoided. She doesn't exist to make another character look good, and most of all, her autism doesn't have an agenda. It's an important part of who she is, and it does present obstacles, but it isn't used to push a narrative or as inspiration porn. An aspect of the show that I really related to was the frustration when it comes to interdependence. We are all interdependent, but because of my disability, I often need help that other people just don't. This is particularly frustrating when you're a young adult like Matilda and I, because you're trying to ask for the help you need, while also drawing those healthy boundaries when it comes to privacy and decision making. In a recent episode, Matilda was arguing with Nick over a decision she wanted to make, and she kept saying, "You don't know what I need better than I do." And that really hit home for me. Everything's Gonna Be Okay doesn't just have disabled characters. It takes the time to explore the intricacies of being disabled while growing up. Another example of this is Matilda's girlfriend, Drea. And I haven't seen many people talking about Lillian Carrier's performance here, but it is amazing. On top of that, Lillian acted as a consultant for the show, making the character seem really authentic. Drea is another complex character trying to navigate a non-traditional relationship. She wants to be able to take care of others while also struggling to take care of herself at times. The show also does a great job of showing the characters prioritizing themselves while also caring for each other and making those healthy boundaries. There's one scene in particular where Matilda's playing the piano by herself and Dre is listening, and she tells her, "What you're playing is beautiful, but would you mind if I put on my headphones? I'm trying to focus." And they both just agree to it, and it's a really healthy boundary that's drawn. It's a really healthy way that they both prioritize their own needs. Last disabled actor's performance that I'd like to highlight is Alex's dad, Eric, performed by CJ Jones. He's only been on the show very briefly up to this point, but he's a deaf character played by a deaf actor, and the integration of this character feels very natural so far. The show has seen the beginning of an arc touching on this character's divorce, and I'd really like to see more of it going forward. Now, some of you who've already seen the show might be thinking, I'm missing a very important character here, and I don't want to touch too much on it because I want to stay away from spoilers in this video, and I do feel like it's a pretty big plot point. However, the show has already started to open great conversations about diagnosis and where that stands and what the value of it is. It also touches a lot on the identity we form as disabled people and how sometimes when other people come in saying they're disabled, there can be this distrust because it doesn't present in the way that we feel. All in all, if you haven't watched it yet, you'll see what I'm talking about there. Everything's Gonna Be Okay very easily could have been a story about how Nick is irresponsible, and because he's forced to care for his autistic sister, he learns magical life lessons and grows up. Not so subtle, cough, cough. But it's not. The story is about a family taking care of each other while also facing their own challenges. And it is an incredibly simple premise, and I think that's what makes the show so powerful. Each character is deeply relatable in good and bad ways. The performances are incredible, and each episode explores relationships without feeling the need to tie everything up into a straightforward moral at the end. The show explores questions like, how do you care for a family? How do you grieve? How do you be an adult? The answer is almost always the best that you can. If you enjoy character-driven comedies, I definitely recommend checking out Everything's Gonna Be Okay. All right, that's it for my first ever video. I'm honestly really nervous about this, but we'll just ignore that for now. Subscribe to see any future content I decide to make, and I'd love to hear what you guys think I should talk on. I'm planning to talk a little bit more about college and things like that. I'm really not sure yet. So, see you around.